this is not a huge group. We're using a microphone because it's easier for some people to hear. And Jim generously offered to make a YouTube video for us. So for family members that aren't in town, they can see later at another time. So we'll just use the mics for that. Thanks for coming out to Desserts on Ice. Well, it was just such a life-changing trip, and we've found out that not very many people have been to Antarctica, but people are curious about it, and so we thought, why don't we just see if anybody wants to see pictures and show them? And we also, we went with Poseidon Expeditions, which is a tour agency that Kristi became aware of, and they made us an amazing video that we're going to watch at the end. And it was, we got some great pictures, but theirs are even better.
Much better.
Professional photographers, and they had a drone. So all the pictures and videos in that video were taken while we were there. So it really is a honest-to-goodness snapshot of our experience, but done in a really excellent way with music put underneath it. So, Kristi, start us off. You're going to start, yeah.
All right. A couple of things. So Julie and I were talking about this earlier, and we were somewhat joking that I've never been to a presentation on Antarctica. So, that's part of the reason we wanted to do it, right? I mean, it's not that many people who go, but I've also never been to a presentation on it. So, welcome to our presentation on Antarctica, or at least our experience of Antarctica. So we wanted to each tell you one of our favorite things. So first, I'm going to have you just picture something. If you've been to a water park, and you've been to kind of the kids area of the water park, how many kids are there? Louder? Lots of kids, right? They're running everywhere. You've got them jumping in the water, you've got them going up the stairs, you've got them walking by you, right? Lots of kids in a water park. So my favorite memory was the very first stop we made, and there's going to be some pictures of that. I believe it's called Culver Island, and it was just running over with penguins. And when the penguins run, they put their arms behind them like this, and they look very much like a 2-year-old toddler running for a hug. Would you please give me a hug? And everything in me wanted to fall to my knees and say, yes, I will. I will gladly give you a hug. But they were everywhere. So they were running, walking very quickly on the beach, diving in the water, diving out of the water, climbing the hill, going up to their nesting site, playing together. So my favorite memory was that very first stop, because they also told us that if you were going somewhere and a penguin came towards you, you had to stop and give them the right of way. So I like loopholes. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah. So I would strategically place myself so that they would come towards me, and I'd be like, I have got to stop while this penguin walks right next to me. It's just the rule. Oh, and if I put myself here, I have to stop again while the penguin walks right next to me. So that was my favorite memory. Julie?
Yeah, I have trouble slowing down sometimes, and sometimes my to-do list is a little overwhelming. And I also dwell often in the world of relationships and planning and analysis, and I'm an N on the Myers-Briggs, if that means anything to anybody. And sometimes they say it can be really relaxing to do something that's kind of out of your personality type. So John is an S, and so he's tuned in to his senses, and sometimes I almost need help to do that. So I think on this trip, there were so many times where we didn't have a signal on our phone, and that was a really great change. And we didn't have computers, we didn't have tasks to do, no responsibilities. And so we would go out on these Zodiac boats for sometimes 2 or 3 hours, or onto the island, or look from the boat. And our only job was to try and take in everything with our senses. And it was just so relaxing, especially the whale watching. I sometimes didn't think whale watching would be that great, because it just sounds like you have to be really patient, which you do, which isn't always my strong suit. But it turns out that if you do just get really quiet and watch for a whale, and then you see one, It's so peaceful. And the whales themselves, they were humongous and they were everywhere. Our expedition guide said they'd never seen so many whales on a single tour before, ever. Sometimes they get to the last day and they haven't seen a single whale and they're all panicking, like just scouring the sea, like, are there any whales for these passengers who are desperate to see one? But this time we'd already seen like 20 on the first day, and so they're like, we do not have to worry. And so I think just you're waiting in the boat and you've heard that there might be whales in the area, but you don't know. So everyone's just looking and just watching. And then someone says, I see one. And everybody looks and you can see them spout their water. And some of them do the dive where their tail goes up. Anyway, I never knew very much about whales and I really loved them. So, yeah.
Sorry, on that note, when we did one of our activities, which was the camping, we were just taking the boat, the Zodiac, from the boat to the shore to go camping. And we get in the Zodiac and we go just a little bit and there's a whale. So they take the Zodiac to show us the whale, and we look at the whale and we're all very excited. And then there's another whale, so we go see the whale and we're all very excited. And then there was another whale and we're all very excited, and another one and we're all very excited. And finally there was another one and our guide was like, I can't go over there. We have to go to the beach, but that never happens. So that was very cool.
So fun. So I was going to show you a few of my favorite pictures, and then Kristi took a new camera that she bought right before the trip, like used but new to you, and so her friend made a little montage video, a couple minutes, highlighting some of hers, and then the video that Poseidon made for us. And some of you are wondering about desserts, and rightly so. We had thought about bringing them in here, and then I think it was you. Were you? Yeah, Kristi was the one that was like, that might be a bad idea. So anyway, just because they can get so messy, and some of the desserts look deliciously messy, so we thought we're going to do pictures and videos in here. We'll try and keep it brief. That'll be easy. And then we'll go and get dessert, and there's chairs in there because we wanted to have a time for question and answer. So if you do have questions that come to mind, that'll be a time that we can either sit together like this and do question and answers, or just individually, whatever you want. So is this time to do pictures? Sure. Or okay, yeah. So there's a penguin. And Kristi and I both went to Marietta. One of our alumni from Marietta had this little tiny Marietta flag. In case you can't see it, it says Marietta. She had it special made. It just meant so much. She was like, in fact, she'll probably watch the video. Hi. She said, I know you won't have much room in your suitcase, so I made you a very tiny Marietta flag that you could raise on Antarctica. Anyway, I thought that was so sweet. And then one thing that was kind of funny, when at night we would all come together in a big room. There were about 95 passengers on the ship, and they would give us a debrief of the day. And they would say, these are the animals you saw today, and here's some pictures of you all doing fun things. And it actually reminded me of my work doing campus ministry.
A lot.
What?
A lot.
A lot. Because when we do overseas trips or we do things on campus, we all come together and say, what are you learning about who you are and about who God is? And this time there wasn't that element, but anyway, it just reminded me of what we do with students. But anyway, one night he said, I saw an animal I've never seen on this island before. It was the Arctic wolf. Did you see it? And people were like, no. And then they showed a picture of me. And it ended up being, the truth is, I forgot that I needed to buy a hat. And it was the last second, and there's so much to do before a trip like this, and I was like, a hat! And then I remembered, so this used to belong to my girls, and then they're too embarrassed to wear it, but I really like it because it's not too tight on your head, and you can stick your hands in it, like down at the sides, and I was like, this will be perfect. So I took it, and I think I embarrassed Kristi a little bit, but it turns out that half the people on the boat didn't speak English. There were 20 people from Russia, and a few people from China, and then there were people from Turkey and Bangladesh.
Germany.
The Australians were good at English. Germany, lots of different places that we're not mentioning. Denmark, Greece, anyway, lots of places. And so it really broke the ice because he said that, and then it was translated into all the languages, so they all had those little interpretation earbuds that they were hearing it. So then often for the rest of the time, people would say to me, like, well, one time I met a guy from Russia. He was 17. It was on one of the last days. I said, I've never had the chance to meet you. My name's Julie. And he said, no. And it's one of those cross-cultural encounters where I was like, yes, it is. And he said, no. And I didn't know what to say at that point. And then he said, Woof, you are Woof. I was like, yes, you can call me Woof. But I do think it just kind of broke the ice and made it easier to make international friends. So One of my favorite things was the icebergs, and they just look so snowy and soft on top. This one was an optical illusion, because doesn't that kind of look like an arch there?
Slow down a little bit.
But it's not. That's just a cute little marshmallow iceberg in front of a bigger iceberg. Isn't that funny?
Can you see both?
Illusion.
Now that she mentions it, like whichever one you saw before, now you can see the other one. So it's just pretty amazing.
So there's a picture from a different angle where you can see the little one in front and the bigger one behind. So the icebergs just had different textures here. It looked like this.
That's a Weddell seal up above. That thing that looks, we called them, they look like slugs. The thing that looks like a slug is a Weddell seal. Am I saying it wrong?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just was thinking it was funny. It's like, so one thing I never knew about icebergs is that they rock back and forth in the water. Well, I think I knew that. But I didn't know that they get smaller and smaller and smaller on the bottom until finally they're top heavy and they flip over. Some of you have heard me say this already because it was like my favorite new fun fact that I didn't know before the trip. Here's another picture from the side. You can see it's kind of going in and in and in and in. And then eventually it flips over. Can you see back to the right there? And when it flips over, it looks totally different. Instead of looking snowy and soft and kind of almost dry, it looks real like wet and glassy. So I saw one flip over, but I didn't catch it on, I was too fast to catch it, but so cool. So icebergs were one of my favorite things from the trip.
One of the things that's Antarctica is known for that, if you guys haven't heard that. So you don't see that kind of blue. Can you back up one?
Yes.
You don't see that kind of blue in the North Pole. So for whatever reason in Antarctica, it is known for that. Can you back up one more?
Yeah.
It is known for that blue color. So that's why these pictures were really fun, and that if you ever see that in pictures, then you can know that is from the South Pole and not the North Pole, because the North Pole doesn't have that level of blue.
Yeah. And there's also no polar bears, but a lot of people don't know that, and they asked us if we were afraid of polar bears, and we weren't. So this was our last view of land as we were leaving Antarctica. Just thought it was beautiful. This was a couple that was from Shanghai, and they didn't speak any English, and it made me so happy, because I've been studying Chinese a long time and rarely have opportunities to speak with someone that my Chinese is better than their English, especially if they speak Mandarin. It's just really rare. So I think they came on the boat not expecting to have conversations with very many people, and so it was just such a treat to be able to expand the number of people they could have conversations with in their language by two, because Kristi also knows Chinese, so that was really fun. This is where we went camping. We did a camping overnight. I'm talking more. Is there my you?
These are your pictures.
Okay. And this was our little toilet that they made for us. They like dug it down in, and then there's a bucket. The black is just a plastic bag, in case you can't
Trash
tell.
bag.
Trash bag.
Funny thing about this is when there was two expedition guides who went, so the one who was planning the camping for us, and then the guy who assisted him. And the guy who assisted him did the toilet and was gone for like 45 minutes. So the expedition guy was like, what the heck is he doing? He was just digging a hole for a toilet. What's taking so long? And then he went to see it and was like, wow, well, it's a masterful toilet. Because there's this, I don't know if you can see it well enough, but on the left, there's a perfect step down. And then there was a perfect step down inside. And it was just a really masterful, artful toilet.
And then they had like paper towels and hand sanitizer and toilet paper. We thought, this is pretty deluxe camping right here. So anyway, you talk about this picture.
So this was one of my high points. There's a few. I am able to identify them in order, but this was one of my high points. So we did go camping because I felt like if we were going to Antarctica and we were staying on a cruise ship, and we'd get off the cruise ship and walk a bit and then get on the cruise ship, people could argue, like, did you really go? And you just got off the ship and got back on. But I thought, if we slept a night in cold Antarctica, basically on the ice, nobody can argue whether we went there. We slept a night on the ice. And in addition, if we were only one of a few people staying the night, maybe we could take a hike. So I asked that question, and they said we could take a hike. So I think 11 of us went, 2 guides and 9 customers. And we went in the pitch dark, which you can kind of see, because there's actually, everybody is in this picture. There's 11 people. You just can't see them. So we were in the pitch dark, and we hiked for 1.5 miles in the pitch dark up a hill, and 1.5 miles back down the snowy, icy hill in our rubber boots. Not ideal. Very cool, though. Very fun. Very memorable. So one of my favorite memories.
And then, so Kristi, this is where we slept. We slept in sleeping bags in like a little bit of a ditch. And
I thought we would have tents, right? I booked us to sleep a night on the ice. I'm anticipating you're taking customers on a cruise ship to Antarctica. I'm sure there's tents. I'm sure you heat it up. I'm sure I was wrong. This is what we actually had.
And this is where Kristi was. I just think it's so funny now. This was my low point of the trip. It was a really excellent thing. I'm glad we camped out. I appreciated the experience, truly. If I was to do it over again, I would not have changed that. But this particular moment was 5 a.m. I didn't sleep, I don't think. I might have drifted off. But they put you in this like tiny little like cocoon liner, and then that goes inside the sleeping bag, and my coat is under my head, and it was kind of raining and snowing on my head and on my face, and my
Can you
feet
imagine
were,
why it would be a low point?
against the
It's
ice.
weird.
And I thought about what it was going to be like to try and stay warm, but I didn't think about how stiff I would be not moving all night. I'm just kidding. I mean, it was a big birthday gift Kristi took me for my 50th birthday, and I was feeling all of my years. So I just had laid there, and I like couldn't even move my hands. I mean, I just was literally like this for like not that long, like 5 hours. So it was 5 a.m. And Kristi was telling me to get up, and I was like, what is she saying? I just remember thinking, like, you're crazy. But anyway, she expected me to try and get out of that sleeping bag, and it's like 0 degrees. It's freezing. And so if you pull in, you can see that's my face there. She said, zoom in more so they can see your glasses. So my glasses were on my face. I got my little Antarctic wolf thing. And finally, I was like, you're going to have to tell me what to do. And so she's like,
Step by
sit
step.
up.
You need to tell me step by step. Okay, you're gonna unzip this, and now you unzip this. But it was reasonable. Like, I had gotten up a couple hours earlier, so I was more awake and engaged. But if we'd both been waking up at 5, I would have felt the same way.
Yeah, I had to put my coat back on, but it was like a popsicle. I had to try and put my boots back on. It was just kind of a rough morning. But it ended up being a really magical day, because I'll tell you this now, even though it's in the video later, but then you'll know when you see. But they told us that they thought we would see humpback whales, and they thought we might see orcas, but they said there's a third type of whale down here that you won't see because it just always hides from people. It's called the minke. Well, it turns out we did see the minke. We didn't just see the minke. He played with us for over an hour, going underneath the different Zodiac boats, and they got it. It wasn't just one, multiple ones, and they got pictures of it from the drone. So when we get to that point and you see a whale very, very close to the boat and going around, that's the minke whale. So that really helped cheer me up the next day. And coffee also was awesome.
It's nicknamed the stinky minke because when you do see it, then it disappears from view.
And some of our expedition guides that have been doing this for years and years had never seen one before, so they were like shocked that we got to see one. This is your picture.
Yeah, these are fur seals. Are we able to show the video or no? Later, the video.
No.
Okay, so these are fur seals, just because you hear about Antarctica. I also like to educate a bit because it's kind of fun. So the other one I said looked like a slug. Can anybody tell me, especially the kiddos, how does a seal usually move on the ground? Slow? Yeah, what does it look like? Yes, it is just like that, right? It kind of moves a little bit like this, just like that. That was very good. Thank you, Roman. So a fur seal can put its back feet under it and walk. And so it can fold its tail down and like waddle on its back feet with its front feet forward. So that was pretty cool. So those were the 2 different types. So there was the Weddell seal and the crab-eating seal and the leopard seal, and all of those do just as Roma just excellently illustrated for us. And the fur seals can walk on all 4s, which is just quite a different movement than the other seals.
Yeah. And just, that was our last view of land there. Just a word about your map. It's numbered and shows you the places that we stopped on our cruise, so you can see what that looks like. And every day we would either go on land or go on ships to look around. And anything you want to say before your pictures are shown? That's what's next.
I don't think so, but I will tell you one thing about expeditions. So they call this an expedition. So when you take other cruises, you go into the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, you can pretty much determine where you're going to go. Kind of like if you were taking a road trip through Ohio, and you would say, I'm going to make a stop in Columbus, and then I'll make a stop in Cincinnati. And there's pretty much nothing that's going to change that. if you were going to make stops in Kansas in the middle of tornado season, something might change it. You might not make that expected stop because there would be inclement weather coming in. So this was an expedition. So you would take stops and they would say, okay, once we get here, we're going to take a look. And if the weather's good, we'll put the Zodiacs in the water and we'll take you to land. And if land is good, then we'll take you to land and let you get off. Now, if land's not good, we'll stay in the Zodiacs. If the weather's not good, we'll stay on the boat. And so it was just really cool. They said it is very much an expedition. It's constantly changing. So every day they were redefining what would happen the next day. And at the end of this, we'll show you, Julie may tell you more about Deception Island, but Deception Island was our very last stop. And it's funny about the expedition guide because he told us about it. And for us, as the people on the cruise ship, we thought it sounded wonderful, right? Everything he described, it was fantastic. This is going to be the best stop ever. Everybody must love this place. And we get on the island, and Julie and I have both at this point gotten to know some of the expedition guides. And they told us how they all dread it when the Deception Island is the stop. Like, it's just not a good stop. It's not a good place to be. Nobody wants to go there. And they're like, but this time it looks amazing. Like, it just snowed. It's not muddy. There's animals. And so, I don't know. It's just very much an expedition. You don't know what's going to happen. Even the guides can get surprised. So as Julie said, my good friend Emily, so I'm going to give a plug for her. She has OMG Photography. She helped me, found me this camera. Her friend was selling it. It was many years old, but an amazing deal. And I don't have it now because I loaned it to another friend going to Africa. Yes, the gift that keeps on giving. But she took my pictures and she kind of updated them some. So she's very good with pictures and like shaded or lightened and stuff. So it's a 2-minute video. You can press play.
By the beauty of your life, I have seen a miracle. I have seen a miracle. Blessed days with you in the corner of my arm. I have seen a miracle. I have seen the sun, it shines for you. The grass is green, the sky is blue. And there you are, like you are. You're feeling so natural. Find your blue-eyed way, my darling, will guide you, but you find it on your own. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound is to me. I have seen a miracle. I have seen
Chin strap penguins.
the earth is here, it's here for you. The 7 fish,
The minke whale.
cows too. And there you
Porpoising penguins.
are, like you are, feeling so natural. Find your blue-eyed way, my darling, will guide you, but you find it on your own. Oh, farewell.
That's Deception Island. Doesn't it look beautiful? We're going to show you another video in a minute, but you saw it there. Did you see the penguin parallel to the water? Everybody see that? So it's called a porpoising penguin. I mean, that's just, the penguin is porpoising. I don't know if it's called a porpoising penguin, but I didn't know because you see them in zoos, and you see them in zoos where they have the water from here to here, they don't porpoise in that water, but when you see them in their environment, they porpoise quite a bit. And I had a lot of clicker fun trying to capture pictures of the penguins porpoising out of the water.
They can go hundreds of miles. They're really strong swimmers. And when you're in Antarctica, it's so snowy and icy and cold, you just can't imagine that anything's alive there. We've never been any place like that. Even there's no citizens on Antarctica. There's no government that controls it. There's no hotels. There's no like hospitals. There's just not much. And you're like, how can there be life here? But there are birds and penguins and seals and whales. Those are the main things.
And krill, which is where they all find their life, right?
Yeah, so in the video we're about to see, when you see like the birds and stuff, you just feel like, it just feels shocking that such cold water could sustain so much life. There's no trees, there's no other kinds of animals. So in the video that we're going to watch, there was something else we were going to...
Yeah, but one thing she just said, so one of the fun facts I learned is there's a bird called an albatross. Who here knows the albatross? Yeah, it's a really big bird. Has I think an 11-foot wingspan. Like, they're huge. But they can fly hundreds of miles and only flap their wings once. Isn't that insane? So they're able to catch the wind currents and just keep their wings extended.
Yeah, glide like
and
a kite or something.
it says that they expend, in those situations, they expend more energy sitting in their nest than they do when flying like that. It's just incredible. So that's how you can have those animals down there, but hundreds of miles. Crazy.
At the very beginning of this video, we're skipping the first 5 minutes. You're welcome. But where we're starting in just a couple seconds, you're going to see just beautiful birds. And the other thing that we hadn't mentioned yet that a lot of you know already, but we went from the southern tip of Argentina, from the southernmost city in the world called Ushuaia, which is actually part of Argentina, and then across the Drake Passage. Oh, I was going to do a question and give a sticker. Does anybody know what oceans converge in the Drake Passage? What do you think? Yeah,
Go ahead.
Bob? Atlantic and Pacific, and one more. Isaac, do you know the other one? No, okay. Yes, Ella. The Arctic Ocean. It is sometimes called the Arctic Ocean, isn't it? Oh, did someone say it over here? Southern Ocean. Yes, you guys want a sticker. It's in the back. But, so these three oceans come together, and there's often tons of turbulence. And in the olden days, lots of people were lost in this part of the ocean, which I found out as we were planning this trip. But it turns out that it's not often fatal to go across the Drake Passage now, like it used to be. But we did have very large waves on our way back to Argentina. It got up to 8 meters, which is about 24 feet, as you know. And so there's some shots of the turbulent ocean. And was there anything else that we wanted to say before they saw it?
Yeah, just a couple things. So on what she was just saying, that for those of you who are math-minded, engineering-minded, the reason it's the oceans converging, but they taught us that around the Antarctic Ocean, you have 3 different points that get close to Antarctica. So you have the New Zealand, which is fairly far up, and then you have South Africa, and then you have Argentina. And so when you go, Argentina's much closer, but the water moving between that area is the same volume. So versus it's going through this much area in these 2 passings, then it comes to Argentina and it has to go through this area. And that's part of the reason why it's such rough weather, because it goes through a much smaller area, so the current is much higher. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. I hadn't heard that before. And we wanted to mention Deception Island. We'll see that at the end of this video, as I was just talking about. One of the things that was neat about it is that it was, nobody knew about it. So it was just, it looked like all the other stops, you know, like harsh and it's hard to get on and maybe you can find a place to land. But in fact, when you went around it, there was this opening that went inside to an old volcano. And so it was all hollowed out in the inside. And so it became this very nice harbor inside where it provided safety. So that Deception Island has, I think, the longest history, because you had first maybe the whalers and or the fur sealers, and then you had the next people coming down to explore, and then the next people coming down to explore, and then the next people coming down to do this. And so hundreds of years on Deception Island versus the rest of Antarctica would have much less of a history.
And the only business on Antarctica that we know of, I mean, there are some scientists who do research there, but the only like place of commerce is a small post office that's been there since the 1940s, and it's run by UK, and they have 4 people. I don't know if it's always 4 women or if it just was 4 women this year, but 4 women that go down to work there for 4 months, and there's they don't have showers. It's just a really rustic context for them. So they're really with each other and then any tourists that come to mail postcards. So that's the only place that does business in Antarctica, and you'll see that in the video too. So should we go?
Yeah, just one more thing. We were talking about the expedition leaders. So if you've taken a trip and someone's taken you as their tour guide, that's what this was like. But our expedition leaders, most of them had their PhDs in some subject about Antarctica, which was quite incredible. So anything I'm telling you about the seals was because one of the expedition guides had her PhD in seals. One of the ladies had her PhD in whales. One of the men had his PhD in history. And so it was just a very, that was something that was really neat, because I haven't taken many trips when the people guiding me are that educated and continuing their education. Though the woman who had her PhD in seals was on vacation. This is what she did for vacation. She went and worked on expeditions in Antarctica.
And most of them spoke 2, 3, or 4 languages. So Peter could work on a cruise ship if he wanted to Antarctica. But anyway, it was really amazing to see what they knew about their subject and then the multiple languages they spoke. So, all right, enjoy, Kristi. They had a GoPro on the front of the ship, and we could see on our TVs in our room what that GoPro could see, so what the weather was like. It was cool.
This was my favorite island. They were incredibly adorable. You just couldn't get over it minute by minute. These are Gentoo penguins. They have an orange beak. The other ones I pointed out earlier were chinstrap penguins, which is what you guys are familiar with from Madagascar.
Those were called Zodiac boats. They could fit 10 people. And almost every day we would go out on a Zodiac expedition for a couple hours where we would see anything we could see from the boat. And then usually at least once a day we could get off on land too.
That's a humpback whale. So we had some expectation of seeing at least one humpback whale, and mostly what we saw were humpback whales. So they typically do this movement 3 times, and then on the 3rd time they dive and wave their tail. The reason the other one is called the stinky minky is you might see this, and then they'll dive and they'll come up a long, long ways away and you won't see them again. So those are humpback whales. Interesting thing about whale tails is it's a signature. The whale tails all look different, so you can follow a whale's path in the world by what its tail looks like. That's a leopard seal. They are one of the strongest predators down there. The leopard seal and the killer whales.
There were killer whales?
Yes.
Huh. God, I didn't know that.
So Port Lockroy is the one Julie was talking about, the post office, and then that woman just presenting was one of the ladies who works there teaching us about it.
They restored the inside to be like it was in 1940 when explorers were living there.
Everybody was waving at this drone, and a little bit later, a bird in the air kept trying to eat the drone, and he had to quickly bring it down.
Isn't that peaceful? Oh yeah, the polar plunge. That's where we jumped in. I mean, it was supervised.
Porpoising penguins. Do you see how you can see them underwater too? I thought that was really neat how they continued to be visible even when they were underwater. It's a humpback whale, I believe, but they don't often come up like that, and so it was really neat because this was I think it's a pod of them, and another one comes up again after that, so that was just really cool to see. It's hard to see, but that's the air bubbles coming up from the whales. I thought this was really neat, almost like artwork, but it was reality. So Julie got her claim to fame as the Arctic wolf. I got my claim to fame for my jumping pose, and they said I was praying for survival. This was when we set foot for the first time on the continent. So like Culverville Bay, which was what I was talking about, was an island, but this is the actual continent of Antarctica. So there's a lot of history on which country was the first to set foot on the actual continent of Antarctica, not just one of the islands. So this was our first setting foot on. Those are chin straps again. I wasn't able to get any close-up pictures of them, but I was always trying. So the actual continent of Antarctica, we were all getting pictures. 7th continent, we made it. Julie, tell them about what you learned about Russia and the 7th continent.
Yeah, they consider Europe and Asia one continent, Eurasia, so they consider Antarctica the 6th continent. They think there are 6 continents, but we count them as 7. So they were really surprised when we told them there were 7 continents. They're like, what's the other one? And this was Kristi's 7th continent. That was part of the desire for doing the trip. She's been to all of them.
This is when we saw all the whales, and he finally stopped showing them to us because we had to go set up for camping. I can't show you anymore.
It turns out it was really frozen where we were supposed to dig our holes for camping. And it was so frozen that he said an hour into trying to dig the holes, he almost canceled it and had us go back to the ship. But several people were like, it's good enough, we want to try. So they let us try. That was the camping group. They're allowed to let 30 people stay overnight. So it was first come, first serve. Some of the people who didn't stay overnight were really wanting to, but didn't make the cut.
the Chinese couple that Julie showed you a picture of earlier helped us to dig our hole, making this again one of our more memorable experiences. Just the time of others helping and loving on us. They gave us heating pads for our back to keep us warm, and it was just a really amazing experience.
It's the minke whale. He cheered me up on my sleepy day.
Some of the danger with a whale is if it's coming from the depths and doesn't know there's something above it. So that was one of the reasons this was more comfortable, is he was next to us, so he went under our boats, but he was diving to go under and come back up, so very aware of what was around him, making it just a peaceful, playful experience where we were just looking at him and enjoying him with no fear that something might happen. And he was also really cool because he wanted to go see each of the boats. There was about, I don't know, maybe 8 boats there, and he visited each of them, like saw one and then went to the next one and visited it and went to the next one, and that was pretty amazing.
There's the marshmallow iceberg.
That one's molting. I think they molt each year. Those are the fur seals, so you can see the back legs a little bit.
This is Deception Island, or Deception Cove. They still had some of the buildings that the explorers and scientists had used in the 40s, but because they weren't kept up as museums, they're pretty ramshackle, but they're still preserved, and you can still kind of look in the window and see where people stayed.
This was an interesting island because it was the only place we visited where it seemed like the animals didn't want us there. So there was time when our friends were walking on the beach in front of us, and the fur seals started running at him, chasing him, and then they got around him, and then the next person coming through tried to chase him again. So they were always chasing the people away, and then there was a penguin trying to get to the water, and it kept trying to avoid the people, so it walked like 200 yards further to get away from the people. Versus the other islands, the fur seals didn't care that we were there. The penguins didn't care that we were there. For this island, they were very aware of the human arrivals.
That was our last stop, in case you're wondering how many more stops are in this video. You stopping there?
That's good, Joyce. Thank you.
You stopping there? Yeah. Okay. We can pause there. We can pause. We can pause.
So that's the woman who was the expert on walruses and took her vacation to go lead expeditions in Antarctica. She was pretty amazing.
So much more, I was just sitting there thinking, well, we didn't say this, and we didn't say that, and we didn't say this. So I hope you can stay and have dessert, and if we want to do some questions and answers, we can. But this is a chance for me to thank Kristi publicly for giving me the trip of a lifetime for my 50th birthday. Thanks, Kristi. Yeah. So please enjoy some desserts, and we'd love to talk more.
Yeah, we're going to gather in that table, so go get your desserts, come to the table in the middle. We'd love to answer any questions you have. We really did have an amazing time. It is transformative. It was fantastic. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Jim, for your help with this. Thank you.